Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Kevin Leon from New York City Emergency Management. Thank you so much for joining today's tornado preparedness with Oklahoma City OEM. We will be beginning in about 5 to 10 minutes, give or take, as we wait for more people to come in. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. This is Kevin Leon from New York City Emergency Management. Thank you again for joining the Tornado Preparedness Ready Up New York City webinar today. We will be beginning in about another 5 to 8 minutes, give or take. So, please stand by and we'll start shortly. Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is Kevin Leon from New York City Emergency Management. It's 1 p.m. right now. We're going to give everyone a couple more minutes to really get back in and settled. So, yeah, we'll be starting in about 1:05. So please take your time and we'll talk to you all in a bit. Hi, everyone. Sorry for constantly repeating myself, but for all the new people who have joined, we are going to begin in a couple more minutes, just giving a couple more people to come in and get themselves situated. So we'll be starting around 1:05. Thank you so much. 1:05 Eastern Time. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Leung from New York City Emergency Management. I want to thank everyone for coming today. And yeah, we are going to start our Ready Up webinar series today on tornado preparedness. And yeah, AJ, Maria, Brian, you guys have the floor and take it away.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is AJ Yablonsky, and I'm here on behalf of New York City Emergency Management. Before we get started with our main presentation for the day from Oklahoma City, we're just going to share a little bit about New York City Emergency Management, the work that we do, and how New York City residents can stay involved with the city and be prepared for any emergency that might occur. So again, thank you so much for joining us today, and we're going to get started. So a little bit about who we are and what we do at New York City Emergency Management. It's our mission to help New Yorkers before, during, and after emergencies through preparedness, education, and response. So we have a very large role within the city government. We help different city agencies coordinate with each other during emergencies. And we also go out into the community to make sure that city residents know how to stay safe and prepared for all different types of emergencies. We have over 200 dedicated professionals that work at our agency. We also have hundreds of volunteers, many consultants throughout the city that work with us. And we're very pleased to be able to go out into the community and explain our mission to everyone through presentations and fairs and parades. We're going to be talking in detail about how to prepare for tornado emergencies today. But in general, the 3 steps for emergency preparedness are making a plan, gathering supplies, and staying informed. If you can get these 3 steps down, you're going to be prepared for any type of emergency that might occur in the city. But today we're very, very excited to have some experts from Oklahoma City, Maria Chaveri and Brian Taylor, who are going to explain in detail about what you can do when there is a tornado in New York City, which is something that many residents don't even know is something that can happen and has happened in the past. And so without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and Maria is going to take it away from here. Oh, Maria, you're muted.
Perfect, thank you. Actually, AJ, if you don't mind, could you share the presentation?
Of course, one moment.
Unless I can manage to.
All right, there we go.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. All right, well, welcome everyone. My name is Maria Chaveri, and I work in Oklahoma City Emergency Management. We're really happy that New York City Emergency Management thought of us when they thought of tornado safety, because it's definitely something we know a lot about. AJ, you can switch to the next slide, please. Okay, so today we are going to talk about tornadoes. So what is a tornado? As you can see, a tornado is a violently rotating column of air that extends from a thunderstorm to the ground. So many people, when they talk about tornadoes, they think that, oh, we were really lucky, nothing happened to our house because the tornado didn't actually touch the ground. Well, this is actually a misconception, because tornadoes are always touching the ground. Usually when that happens, where there's no damage, it just means that the tornado actually wasn't strong enough to cause any significant damage or anything like that. But tornadoes, they are pretty hard to see. They can be very, very deadly, and they have a lot of really strong winds. So if you could click again, AJ. Right, so a lot of times this funnel shape that you see, it's, you know, what's depicted in all movies and a lot of the photos that you'll see, but sometimes it's actually really hard to see tornadoes. You can only really see the bottom parts of them when there's a lot of debris or dirt that's being picked up by them. Next slide, please. This is another great photo from a good friend of our office of a tornado. This was actually posted in the New York Times in 2013, just to show you an example of a very large tornado, but as you can see, this one does have the clear funnel shape that comes from the thunderstorm down to the ground. Next slide, please. And this one is a video. So if you could play the video to show everyone. Yeah, so as you can see in this tornado, the tornado is actually that kind of dark mass that is coming from the thunderstorm down to the ground to the left of the police car. And you can see it doesn't have that same kind of funnel shape, but that is a tornado. So that is why sometimes it could be kind of hard to see. Like you might look at that and not really realize that it is a tornado. Next slide, please. So tornadoes happen all around the world, but we are very unlucky in the United States in that many of them do happen in the US. And most of those happen within the Central Plains. Could you click again? Which is in this area. I believe Texas kind of annually always has the largest amount of tornadoes. There are about 1,200 tornadoes a year in the United States. And within the Central Plains region, most of them happen between March and June. In Oklahoma, they all happen within March and June usually, and the majority of them happening in May. Tornadoes can last from a few seconds up to an hour, but the average duration of a tornado is within 10 minutes. But even with these statistics, tornadoes really can happen any time of year. So if you click again, you'll see that even New York gets tornadoes, with the season being a little bit later than us from June to August, peaking in August. So even though it isn't as common, it's really important for everyone to know about tornado safety. Next slide, please. So the National Weather Service issues tornado watches and warnings. And what I want everyone to really understand is that within a tornado warning, once a tornado warning is issued, you have on average about 15 minutes to take shelter. But I don't want people to think that, oh, it's okay, I always have 15 minutes, because that may not be true. That is just normally the amount of time that you have after a tornado warning is issued. So it's really great to get in the practice of, if you hear a tornado warning has been issued, to take shelter immediately. Now, tornadoes, as you can see, there's a bunch of different scales. It goes from EF0 all the way to EF5. And most tornadoes in Oklahoma are actually EF0 or EF1. This is actually the same for New York. Even more of the tornadoes are EF0 or EF1. We do get some in Oklahoma that are EF2 and EF3, and about 1.6% are EF4 or EF5. Now in New York, though, what is pretty great is that there have only been recorded one EF3 tornado and one EF4 tornado in like the last 20 years that we know of. So most of the tornadoes that will happen in New York are of EF0 or EF1 levels, which, as you can see, it's wind speeds from 65 to about 110 miles per hour, which can have minor damage to moderate damage. So, you know, maybe a few shingles off the roof, maybe some, you know, branches from the trees have fallen. But I don't want people to think that it's not a big deal, though, because debris is actually the greatest danger that happens when a tornado arrives. The debris is very, very dangerous. It can fly through the air, it can trap people, it can hurt people. It is one of the greatest dangers to tornadoes. So even though, you know, these tornadoes are EF0, EF1, most of them at least, you still need to take shelter properly. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, one more. In addition to, oh, there we go. In addition to tornadoes, there are other dangers as well that people should be aware of during these type of storms, right? There are straight line winds, which actually have the power to knock over mobile homes and manufactured houses as well. There are also microbursts, which is basically like a downdraft, very severe downdraft that it has the strength to actually uproot like mature trees. Lightning, hail, and flooding are also a lot of examples. Next slide, please. Great, so now we are going to do a poll. If AJ, you can help me with this. So number one, have you ever experienced a tornado? Please answer yes, no, I don't know. This is mainly just so that we can have an understanding of what the current viewers' understandings of tornadoes are. And number two, oh, great. So we have 35% have experienced a tornado, 50% haven't, and about 15% are not sure. So next poll question is, do you know where to go to take shelter during a tornado? Okay, 69% say yes, and no, 31% say no. So this is great. And our last poll question, from 1 to 5, 1 not being not confident at all, and 5 being very confident. How confident are you in knowing how to prepare for a tornado? All right, so it seems like about from the scale 1 to 5, the majority of people have put number 3, which is great. So hopefully by the end of this presentation, you will all be closer to 5. And so we will keep moving on. Okay, so as AJ mentioned before, the 3 steps to preparing for a tornado are it's very similar to other emergencies, right? First, we want to make sure that everyone has a plan. It's really important that you understand how you will receive tornado warning emergency alerts. We need to know where you are going to shelter in case of evacuation, which wouldn't really happen during a tornado. This might happen after a tornado. You need to know what your evacuation route is. And you also need to know how you're going to get in touch with the people in your household. So how will you get in contact with your family members, your household members, in case there isn't power or Wi-Fi, cellular services down, stuff like that. And the last part too is including your emergency kit, which we will talk about more later. Next slide, please. So you need to have a plan for all the common locations that you might be in. So you need to have one at work, one at school, one at home. Wherever you are, you need to have a plan for all of these different locations, and you need to practice them every year. So if there's a tornado at work, where are you going to take shelter? Versus at home, where are you going to take shelter? Next slide, please. Your communication plan needs to include information on everyone in your household. Photos are great as well as any sort of special needs or concerns that your family members might need, like special medication or stuff like that. You need to have common family locations. If you have pets, you also need to include this information for your pets. You should have emergency numbers because, like I said, if you don't have internet or access to your smartphone, stuff like that, you need to know what numbers to call for different types of emergencies, right? Because we don't always just want to be calling 911. For example, if we don't have electricity in our house, we should not be calling 911 for that. And we should also have 3 different meeting locations for your family. Next slide, please. I already mentioned pets, but you should have a plan for your pet as well. It's really important that you get your pet microchips. So in case they do get lost and someone turns them in, they can know who their owner is based on their microchip. If you have to evacuate, you need to have a plan for your pet because some shelters may not allow pets. So where will you go? Where can you take your pet? It's also really important to, get in touch with your neighbors, the people live around you, so that they can also keep an eye out on your pet. If a storm comes and your pet gets out of your house, if you have neighbors that know that, that you have this certain type of pet, they can keep an eye out for your pet as well. Next slide, please. So let's talk about sheltering in place. So if in the case of a tornado, it is really important to shelter in place. Now, the best place that you can take shelter is in a storm shelter that is built to FEMA or ICC 500 standards. A lot of people in Oklahoma have them since we have so many tornadoes here. The next option, if you could click again, is a basement. Now in Oklahoma, we actually don't have a lot of basements. So that is why we have so many shelters, or we have like fortified rooms in our house. I'm not too sure about New York City, but if your house has a basement, that is a really great location for you to take shelter. If you live in an apartment or high-rise building, you should know whether or not there's a basement or a shelter for you to go to. If you do not have either of these options, you need to get to the innermost room, hallway, or closet on the lowest level of the building, right? So you want to put as many walls between you and the outside of the house as possible. Next slide, please. So in addition to this, there are other things you can do to take care. You can wear a helmet, and you should also have sturdy shoes, because in case a tornado does come and causes significant damage to your house, you may be having to walk over debris after the fact. You can also protect yourself even more by using sturdy furniture to hide under within your innermost room. You can use thick cushions and blankets to help protect yourself, because remember, flying debris is the greatest danger. So it's really to help cushion any blows and to make sure that you are as safe as possible. So next slide, please. Here is a great picture to kind of show you what I was talking about. As you can see, the outside is very unsafe. Exterior rooms do not protect you as well. So you really want to go to the innermost room or to a basement or shelter. Next slide, please. Now, we don't have a lot of tall rise buildings in Oklahoma City. We have some. I imagine there are quite a bit more in New York City. But some special considerations if you do live or work in a tall rise building, you really want to stay away from the windows. You should know if that building that you frequent has access to a shelter, basement, or if you can quickly get to the first floor. And if it does, you need to know, like, how can I get down there? What is the best path? In case of an emergency, is it going to be quicker or easier for you to take the stairs, or will the elevators keep running? It's really important for you to know those things. But regardless of where you are, and if you have a basement or a shelter or access to the first floor, you need to get to the lowest level of that building as quickly as possible when you hear a tornado warning. Next, please. Another thing that Oklahoma City does not have as much of as New York City is pedestrians. If you are outside, you need to get into a building as quickly as possible. You need to get to a sturdy building as quickly as possible. If you click again, we really want to make sure that pedestrians don't leave a building that they're already in to go into a subway. The subway should be as a last resort. I believe the subways may not be running, but you may have access to them, but you really don't know. So if you're outside and the subway is like the closest thing you can get to and it's an emergency, go into the subway. But if you have the ability to get into a sturdy, well-built building, you should get into that. Next, please. So something else that's really, really important is that mobile homes and manufactured homes do not provide adequate protection against tornadoes. Now, the homes in Oklahoma City, for example, they can provide enough protection up to 98% of the tornadoes we get here. But this is not the case for mobile homes or manufactured homes. As I mentioned before, even a straight line wind can overturn a mobile home. So if your residence is a mobile home or a manufactured house, it's really important that you make a plan and that you act on that plan well ahead of time. So if it's a tornado warning is already being issued, it's too late. It might be too late already for you to go. So you need to have a plan to get to a well-built building, and you need to leave well ahead of a tornado warning being issued. So you need to stay weather aware and make sure that you're getting to a safe location well ahead of time so you don't get stuck on the road while there is a tornado. Next slide, please. Oh, and this is another important thing, especially now during COVID. A lot of the hospitals, even here in Oklahoma City, were saying that they were not going to be able to open their doors to residents that are seeking shelter. Now, a lot of people, when they make their plans, we want to remind them that most public buildings and hospitals do not provide adequate protection against tornadoes. So you should not treat them like a public tornado shelter. It's really more important for you to reach out to friends, family members, people that you feel close enough to that you could shelter with, that live in a well-built home or building. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to do another poll. So there is a tornado warning where you live. I want you to identify where you will go. This answer will vary for everyone, but your options are shelter, basement, first floor, innermost hallway, I don't know, a friend, family member shelter, basement, or safe space, or a public storm shelter. Okay, so unlike Oklahoma City, it seems like a lot of people have access to a basement. Some people also may not, but they have access to the first floor innermost hallway, which is great. And it looks like 2 people still don't know. So I really recommend that they sit down and make a plan and, reach out to their coworkers, family, friends, and see what they do. So maybe it'll give them some more ideas. Okay. So I'm really glad that no one put public storm shelter, because both Oklahoma City and New York City do not have public storm shelters. And every year we tell our residents this, and every year everyone's very surprised by this because we have so many tornadoes. So people are really curious as to why. So if you could click twice. The main reason why is because it's incredibly dangerous for people to leave their home that will most likely protect them to go to a public tornado shelter. A lot of people may end up not making it in time. They could get caught in their car. They get to the shelter too late and it's closed. They could be refused entry into the shelter for many reasons. For example, maybe they brought their pet and pets aren't allowed in the shelter. During this time when people are very worried, maybe they're not driving as safely, they could get into a car accident. So there are many reasons. It's shown that it's safer for people to shelter in place than it is to try to travel to a public storm shelter. So the next slide will show a great picture as to why this is. So there we go. So as you can see, as I mentioned before, from the time that a tornado warning is issued, people have about 15 minutes to shelter. And sometimes this might be less. So that's also something really important to keep in mind. So once the warning is issued, as you can see, it takes about maybe 2 to 3 minutes for people to receive that information. Maybe, you don't have an app on your phone, so you see it on the news, or maybe your phone, sends you an app, but it takes you a couple minutes to get that information. Then, we have this phenomenon where people take they take even some more time to decide whether or not they need to shelter. We really always want to verify, look out the window, call mom, call a brother or sister or friend, whatever it is. It takes a couple more minutes to decide to actually shelter. And then once you decide to shelter, it takes even a couple more minutes to gather everyone, get your keys, get your stuff, decide if you're going to take your pet, get into the car. So by the time you're actually in the car and you're leaving, on average, 10 minutes have already passed. So it doesn't give you a lot of time to actually get to the tornado shelter. And getting caught in a tornado in your car is really, really dangerous. In fact, most deaths attributed to a tornado are due to being in a car during a tornado. So next slide, please. So if you are unfortunate, if it's, you are in the situation that you are driving during a tornado, you need to get to a well-built building as soon as possible. You should never try to outrun a tornado in your car. This is really dangerous. If you could click again, you really want to get to any building, the best building that you can. But if you have options, you want to avoid places with wide-span roofs, such as auditoriums, cafeterias, and shopping malls. So you want to get a sturdy building that does not have a wide-span roof. Next slide, please. If you cannot find shelter, there isn't a building that you can access, or you just don't have time, you have two options. So one, you can stay in the car with the seatbelt on, put your head down below the windows and cover yourself with your hands or blanket or anything that you might have, in your car with you. If you can, which is even better, if you can safely get to an area lower than the level of the roadway, you need to exit your car and lie down in that area. And you should, once again, cover your head with your hands. If you have a thick blanket or something like that to cover yourself with, the better. Next slide, please. A lot of people's inclination is to park under bridges or underpasses, but this is incredibly dangerous. Not only could you cause an accident or put other people at greater risk of injury, it's actually not safer for you to be under a bridge or an underpass, because oftentimes they're built on higher land, and so they'll have higher wind speeds going through that, going under that bridge or underpass. And when the tornado passes, what's interesting is that the wind direction will actually shift abruptly, which can cause a lot of damage to you as well. So it's really, really, really important that people understand they should not park under bridges or underpasses. Please, follow the option one or two. You can either try to take shelter in your car, or if you get to the lowest point of land around you, you can safely get out there. You need to go lay there, go lay in the ditch instead of parking under a bridge or underpass. Next slide, please. So after tornado comes, there are some post-event risks. Debris, like I said, it's the greatest danger during tornadoes. And there will be debris after the tornado as well. So you have to, how do you navigate that carefully? If there is spilled hazardous or flammable materials, you need to clean that up immediately. Also, you need to check for gas leaks. If you smell gas or anything like that, you need to deal with that right away. Don't turn on, your stove or anything like that. Make sure that there aren't any gas leaks before you keep using your appliances. Now, something also to consider in New York City is falling glass. After tornado, some debris might have damaged the glass on these taller buildings. And after the tornado, the glass could be falling. So you really need to be cautious and realize that maybe not everything after the tornado is as safe as it was before. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a little quiz as we're going to talk about our emergency kit next. Okay, so how much water should be in your emergency kit? You have 4 options: 1 bottle per person per day for at least 1 day, 1 bottle per person per day for at least 3 days, 1 gallon per person per day for at least 3 days, or 1 gallon per person per day for at least 5 days. All right, so it looks like most people said 1 gallon per person per day for at least 3 days. And about 33% said 1 gallon per person per day for at least 5 days. Okay, very good. It looks like most of you guys got it right. So we recommend having at least 1 gallon per person per day for at least 3 days. But it's also okay if you have option 4. That just means you're maybe more prepared. But the minimum require, what we ask is that people have 1 gallon per person per day for at least 3 days. Next slide, please. So here are some more basic kit items. We have, you should, as well with water, you need to have non-perishable food for at least 3 days. This is stuff that comes in cans, like canned tuna or, vegetables. That's something that's already, you can just open it and eat it, that you don't have to cook it, and that's not going to go bad, right? If you have canned foods, you need to have a hand-operated can opener. You should also have a first aid kit, dust masks, sanitizing wipes. Next slide, please. Extra clothes, cell phones and chargers, a whistle in case you get caught. It can help, you can sound for help. People can find you that way. A radio and extra batteries. We recommend having a Noaa weather radio. They have the option of, running from electricity, batteries, and some even have a hand crank option, so you can power the radio. If you have the kind that works with batteries, you need to make sure you have extra batteries in case, you are sheltering in place for a few days and it runs out of juice. You want to have extra batteries. Those extra batteries should also work for your flashlight. They also make hand cranking flashlights that can run without batteries, which is always a good option as well. And you should have some kind of basic tools with you as well. Next slide. You should also make copies of your important documents, such as medical prescriptions, credit cards, IDs, anything like that. You should have some extra cash on you, maybe a map of the local area, and all these things need to be contained in a waterproof container so they won't get damaged in case, they get wet. Next slide. If you have pets, you also need to prepare a kit for your pets. So you should have food for at least 3 days per pet, as well as water. You need to have their collar, their leash, make sure you have their IDs with them. And you also need to have, copies of their important papers as well, their medical records, their vaccinations, that type of thing. And, maybe something to help keep them entertained is a good idea as well. Next slide. And, you need to think about who is in your household or your residence or at work, wherever this might be. If you have children or infants, they also have some specialty items that you need to include, such as bottles and formula, diapers, toys, diaper rash cream, wipes, that sort of thing. Next slide. And in addition to that, not just infants, but think about if anyone in your household needs medication, or if they wear glasses or contacts, there should be, extra contacts and solution for them. You can include a fire extinguisher if you'd like, any other personal hygiene items you might need. Maybe you want to include disposable cutlery. These are some other things that you can include in your kit. So the last section that I want to talk about is staying informed. This is really important with tornadoes and just weather awareness in general. There are different ways that you can get weather information, AM, FM radio, your weather radio is a great source. Maybe you look at online news, television, emergency app. These are all great solutions or great options for you. And we recommend that you have at least 3 to get your weather information. So something special to Oklahoma City, since we have so many tornadoes here, is that we do have an outdoor warning system that is made up of 182 warning sirens. Now, these sirens are only meant to be heard outside. Some people can hear them from inside their house, but they're really just meant to alert people that may be outside working or playing, whatever. There is no all clear signal. So they just sound when there is danger and you need to go take shelter. And we test them every day, although this is an inaudible test, people can't hear it, but we test them every Saturday at noon. So as well, and that is an audible test. So if you ever come to Oklahoma City over the weekend and on Saturday you hear this siren, this kind of loud siren at noon, you don't need to panic. It is just our test. And the only time we don't test it is if there's some kind of malfunction or if, we have potential for severe weather that day, because, then we might need to actually sound it for real. Next slide. Another interesting thing that we have in Oklahoma City as well is the Accessible Hazard Alert System, or AHAS for short. It's a really great program that we offer for free to our residents that sends alerts in American Sign Language to internet and video capable devices such as computers, smartphones, tablets, and wireless braille readers. Next slide, please. So specific to New York City, because, AHAS unfortunately doesn't extend and all the way to New York City. And we also, I believe you guys don't have outdoor warning sirens as well. So something that you guys do have though is Notify NYC. It's great, not just for tornadoes, but it'll give you information about all different sorts of emergencies. And you can find information about it on social media, and you can also sign up for it at nyc.gov/notify-NYC. So like I said, it's really important for people to have 3 ways of getting weather information in case one of those ways fails, right? If there's a power outage, you may not be able to use your TV. If your cellular data isn't working, you may not be able to use your phone. So the 3 ways that we recommend is first and foremost a Noaa weather radio, because these can operate off of batteries, or even the hand crank ones. They don't even need batteries to work, and they're really great. We also recommend using an emergency app. So this could be like Notify NYC. We really like the Red Cross tornado app as well. And in Oklahoma City, we have, the outdoor warning sirens, or the outdoor warning system, but we would like for, residents in New York City to also have a third method as well. Yes. So one last thing I want to talk about is that when it comes to your alerts, they need to be loud enough so that they can wake you up at night. Now, most of the tornadoes in Oklahoma City, for example, they happen between 3 and 9 p.m., but they can happen anytime during the day. And it always seems like the ones we remember the most are the ones that happen at night when we're sleeping. So it's really important that whatever systems you're using for weather warnings are loud enough so that they can wake you up at night. And, another thing to consider at night is that, when your alarm wakes you up, you don't really want to waste a lot of time to verify. You really just want to get to your shelter as quickly as possible. So even though that is our inclination as humans, is to confirm with our friends or family, or to look outside the window to see if they're really, how the weather is looking. Try to practice not doing that and just going straight to your shelter. Next slide, please. So with tornado warnings, there are 2 terms I want everyone to be familiar with. One is tornado watch. So the tornado watch means that a tornado is possible. It doesn't mean that it's happening, but that it might happen in the future. But the weather conditions are perfect for a tornado to happen, but one hasn't happened yet. So when a tornado watch is issued, it's really important that you stay weather aware. You can stay tuned into your local radio or TV for information. You need to, remind yourself where you're going to go if a warning is issued. If you live in a mobile home or manufactured home, this might be a good time for you to start thinking about getting to where you will shelter in place, because the tornado warning has not happened yet. Now, a tornado warning, on the other hand, means that a tornado is happening or it's about to happen. So you need to take shelter immediately. You really should not waste any time. You should not be on the road. You need to be taking shelter in that moment. So next slide, please. So now we have a couple scenarios that we want you guys to tell us whether this is a warning or a watch. So number one, you are watching TV when a local meteorologist reports that a trained storm spotter has seen a tornado on the ground. Is this a warning or a watch? Okay, 65% said warning and 35% said watch. The correct answer is warning, because we have the storm spotter has seen the tornado on the ground. There is a tornado, so this is a warning. So you do need to take action. A tornado has been sighted. And it's okay if you got it wrong, because honestly, everyone will be saying it's a tornado warning. You don't really have to guess for yourself, but we're just having some fun here. So next scenario. During dinner, the Noaa weather radio in your kitchen says there is a chance for severe weather in the area where you live. Is this warning or watch? All right, so it looks like most of you guys got this right. Yes, this is a watch, because there is only a chance for severe weather. It is not that severe weather is happening now. So it is a watch. Very good. Okay, scenario number 3, the weather app on your phone says the weather looks like it could produce a tornado near your home. Is this a warning or a watch? All right, looks like most people said watch, and this is true because it says that it looks like it could produce a tornado. So that means a tornado has not been spotted. There isn't a tornado yet, but that there might be one. So yes, it is a watch. Okay, we have 2 more. So this one is, it is currently raining at your house. News channels on Twitter say that the rain may get heavier within the next hour. Is this a warning or a watch? Okay, looks like this one was 36% warning, 64% watch. So this one is also a watch because it just says that the rain may get heavier within the next hour. So it is not a warning. It's not a flash flood warning or anything like that yet. There's just the potential for flooding. Okay, and last one. It is raining heavily at your house. The news meteorologist says several intersections are covered in water and cars are getting stuck trying to drive through the water. So is this a warning or a watch? Okay, very good. So 78% warning, and that is true that, the intersections are covered in water, right? There's flooding and cars are getting stuck trying to drive through. So this is a warning of flooding is happening and people should be taking shelter and not driving, right? Once again, I just want to say it's okay if you didn't really get these right or if you found this difficult. This was just kind of a way to maybe test yourself and have fun. Because in these situations people will, whether it's the news or radio, people will be saying whether or not it's a warning or a watch. But I just want people to understand warning means take action, watch means stay informed. You may have to take action soon. Next slide. Thank you. Here are some more useful links for you guys, which I know that New York City Emergency Management has already shared with you, or you probably already know. So I think we can move on. Next slide. So in summary, I just want everyone to remember you need to make a tornado plan. You should build a kit or update your kit and make sure you have 3 ways to stay informed. If you click one more time, I just want to let people know that sometimes this can feel a bit overwhelming. You're not really sure where to even start with making a plan. If you go to ready.gov/plan, this website already has plan templates that you can go ahead and go through and work at your pace with your household members. It's a great tool that's already there, so you don't have to make it from scratch. Okay, next slide. So we will just repeat this poll one more time to see, hopefully you guys have learned something. So number 1, do you know where to go to take shelter during a tornado? Wonderful. 100% of people said yes. That's great. And we will do the last poll question, which is from 1 to 5, 1 being not confident at all and 5 being very confident. How confident are you in knowing how to prepare for a tornado? All right, well, it looks like everyone did learn something. So that's great. So next we will have the floor open to any questions. I myself will be able to answer them, and also our Deputy Director of Emergency Management in Oklahoma City. So I will turn that back over to AJ and Kevin so you guys can maybe coordinate this.
Yes, thank you so much, Maria. That was a wonderful presentation. I know I learned a lot about how to prepare for tornadoes in New York City. I'm just gonna stop sharing my screen with that presentation and move back to a different one. But again, thank you so much. That was just absolutely wonderful. We are so grateful to have both you and Brian here to answer any questions. If anyone has any questions, please leave them in the chat. I'm just looking to see if there are any questions. I don't see any questions yet.
Hey,
Just give it
AJ,
a few moments. Oh, in the Q&A, I was looking at the wrong thing. Sorry about that.
There are a couple questions in the Q&A. You could read it off of there. Okay,
perfect. Thank you, Kevin. Okay, so first question, would an interior closet far from windows be safer than the first floor where the lobby is small and it will get crowded fast?
My inclination is that the first floor is safer than the upper floor. So if you for example, if you live on the third floor of your building or your home and, you realize you can get to the innermost hallway there, it's still at the third level. So the second floor and first floor are going to be safer than that. So you really do need to get to the first floor. The best bet, even if it gets crowded in the lobby, is for everyone to get in the first floor as far away from the windows as possible. And if there are windows there, using heavy furniture or something like that to put in between you and those windows in case of debris is safer.
Thank you, Maria. Our next question is, can tornadoes hit a home or high building?
Yes, they definitely can. Tornadoes can hit anything. Depending on the strength of the tornado is what will determine whether or not there is damage, right? So, I have personally been in a tornado having lived in Oklahoma, and I can tell you that when the tornado went over my house, it sounded like there was a train was like going over my head. It was very, very scary. And for me, I was maybe like 12, 13 around there. I thought, wow, like our house was going to be gone after that. But afterwards, when we went outside, we realized like we really didn't have any damage. So yes, it can hit your home. Whether or not there is a lot of damage or not has a lot to do with how well your home is built and how strong the tornado is.
Great. I believe the next question will be for Kevin. Are any of the former civil defense bomb shelters in New York City still operational and suitable for shelter if a tornado approaches New York City?
Thanks so much for the question. Yeah, so in New York City, and the same thing as OKC, we strongly urge people to stay sheltered at home when a tornado happens, because during that case, there might be flying debris around. If you're exiting your home, it is pretty dangerous. And also, we don't have any more of the civil defense bomb shelters. So from civil defense, it became FEMA back in the 70s. And then from FEMA, we broke up into localized emergency management offices throughout the country. We do have hurricane shelters, and we do have service centers that do open up when an emergency happens, but that isn't something that is a set place yearly or a set place at all. If there is something, say like a fire in a neighborhood, and we need to have a service center to cater to a population group, we will open one somewhere close as a school or a community center, etc. Not too sure what the details of that would be. So no, to answer that question, there are no tornado shelters or suitable shelters when a tornado approaches New York City. The best option, again, is to listen to what Maria said and really stay at home, be in a safe spot, in the most internal spot of your home.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin. The next question is, will we have a PowerPoint to review all the information? We will be sending out a version of the PowerPoint to make sure that everyone who attended has a copy of it. Next question, how long does a tornado normally last?
Oh, that's a great question. So it varies. Most tornadoes can last from a few seconds to about 10 minutes. That's kind of the average, is around that 10-minute marker, but they can last up to an hour, if not over an hour.
And the last question that we have for right now is, how do you handle disabled persons getting to shelters and or safe areas in Oklahoma City?
Right. So in Oklahoma City, like I said, we don't have public tornado shelters. This is why we really emphasize people making a plan, because every household is going to have very different needs, right? So in the case that, someone in your household is disabled, there's many different kinds of disabilities as well. So your plan needs to be catered to that individual, if that makes sense. So, if you have a tornado shelter in that home, that's something you should work out ahead of time, so that when it happens, everyone already knows how you're going to protect everyone. And I would like to reiterate how important it is to practice taking shelter, because it has been shown, especially for kids or people with special needs, the more you practice that plan as well, the easier it becomes and the less stressful it is. And it's just really, really great practice. So the more you practice taking sheltering in place, or going to wherever it is that you've decided, the easier it'll be for you on that day.
Thank you for that, Maria. The last question that I see right now is, what is the difference between a hurricane and a tornado?
Oh, goodness. Well, I am not a meteorologist, but I believe a tornado is, this certainly rotating winds that are coming from a thunderstorm to the ground. I believe a hurricane is, I don't know, Brian, can you, maybe we don't really get hurricanes in Oklahoma, so that's why I'm not very too well versed on that, but
the biggest difference between a tornado and a hurricane is where they originate from. A tornado originates from within a thunderstorm, and it is the column of air that drops from the thunderstorm base all the way to the ground. A hurricane begins over a land or over a water base, mainly in the ocean, and it is a very larger storm that does have a center eye that has the calm center of it, and it's just the difference in scale and size. So a tornado can go over top of a source of water, and they would rename that from a tornado to a waterspout, because what the column of air is drawing up is no longer debris and dust. It is actually water from the lake, the pond, the stream that is drawing up in there, which gives it visibility. But as a hurricane crosses from the ocean onto land, it begins to dissipate and drop down and goes from a hurricane to a tropical storm. So it's just, in terms of the difference between them, is one is primarily land-based, the other originates over the ocean or over a sea, and one is significantly larger, which you have, potentially weeks or days of pre-notice before a hurricane hits, versus a tornado could drop and could be a QLCS or a quick spin up tornado that just drops immediately on the front line and is there for 30 seconds and gone.
right.
Thank you for that explanation, Brian. One more question I see is, if there's a kit available in New York City, where can we pick one up? We actually don't have any emergency kits available for the public, but we do have an online resources on our website where we give information about what you can include in your emergency kit. And you can use any backpack or small suitcase with wheels for your emergency kit. Anything that can hold a few items, enough water, all those materials that Maria was talking about earlier.
Hey, AJ, I would also like to add a little bit more onto that. Pre-COVID, back in 2019, New York State did have a partnership with the National Guard that went out to different communities that did emergency preparedness presentations, which is about a 2-hour training. And then after that training, they would give people an emergency supply kit or a go bag a very basic one where people can add on to it. At the moment, they're still not doing it due to the circumstances that we live in this day and age. But be on the lookout for that to pop up back in the next 6 to 12 months. Hopefully they'll be back up and running and provide these trainings to the public where they can also receive a go bag. But again, we don't know for sure when that's going to happen. Maybe end of 2021, most likely sometime in 2022.
And I'll add to that too, that when you look at those lists, sometimes they can feel very overwhelming. You look at a lot of different, there's so many things on that list. And when you start thinking about it financially, it might seem overwhelming, just the cost. But so what I want to say to that is, like, you can build your emergency kit over time. If you go to ready.gov, they also have a great breakdown of how you can build an emergency kit over 21 weeks. So that way it's like you're spacing out all the items that you want to accumulate. That way it's not as overwhelming. So I just wanted to let people know that. Don't get discouraged when you see a list and you just decide, no, I'm not going to do this at all because it's too much. You can start with a few basic items and go from there.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Yeah. And definitely start small and go big. And then also I saw some people in the chat that like various different teams and city government officials and et cetera were also handing out some go bags before COVID-19 and maybe even during. And yeah, definitely different programs throughout the city, nonprofit, for-profit, and volunteer teams do give the communities go bags. So please be on the lookout if you live in an area that does have an active community to see if they are handing anything out or doing any type of emergency preparedness go bag training around the area as well.
All right, well, I don't see any other questions in the chat or in the Q&A. So again, I want to thank our friends at Oklahoma City Emergency Management, Maria and Brian, for all of their time and expertise today. We really just cannot thank you enough for being here and creating this presentation and sharing your knowledge with New York City residents who I know are going to go back into their communities and continue to spread the knowledge of how to stay safe from tornadoes. So thank you so much. And with that, we will conclude today's webinar on tornado preparedness. We will send out a copy of the presentation to everyone who attended, and you can feel free to share that with your communities as well. So thank you all and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.